How are you? Oh, can you hear me good? I've moved my microphone. If you can't hear me that well, or if it sounds different than before, I can move it back. Is it too echoey here? Because I had it in the shelf up at the top, and I was talking to my friend the other day, and he said it sounded, I forgot how he described it. So I don't know if it was bouncing off the sides of a little cabinet on the top of my desk. I put it on the top of the desk. Sound like I'm in a tunnel. Okay, hold on. We're gonna test. I'm gonna move it back to where it was before. Give me 1 second. Does that sound any better? God, why do I look yellow? I think it was the camera adjusting. Is this any better? Much better? Okay. Okay. It's also, the microphone is closer to me now. So I think that's might be something part of it, because it was high up on the very, very top shelf, and I guess it was bouncing off the walls and the furniture and everything, and then all of that. Okay. Good to know that I've got everything somewhat the way it should be. I gotta move my keyboard out of the way. So, I don't know if anybody had, I don't know how you all get to this stream. Woo, woo, party. I don't know if you guys click on the Facebook link or just sign into Twitch and go from there. There's different ways of doing it. But, I just posted on Facebook the link, and I always give a little thing. Basically, I'm streaming, welcome and all. And I use Cinderella's phrase Yarnies. Okay, you do it. Okay, you do it through Twitch. Okay. I used her phrase Yarnies because I like that term. So I guess that's what all of my followers are known as now, I guess. You know, like YouTubers or like celebrities, not that I'm a celebrity, they call their fans a certain thing. Not that you're really my fans, but anyway. And then also what I posted on there, and it's a term that I learned the other day. It's a term called Crochet, and I will type it here in the chat. Crochet. Crochet means your crochet mojo. So when you get all excited or you're really into a project, you're sparking your crochet. Or if you aren't really enthused, you have no crochet. So that's a term I just learned. Got my yarn stuck on my Velcro thing on my bag. Let me check this. Okay, purple. Oh God, you and your limericks. I want to let you all know tonight, again, it's temperature blanket, 3 rows, and the issue I had last week, when I got done those 3 rows, I had an hour or so to kill. I've planned extra after I do the temperature blanket. Yes, it's time to get your crochet on. Now, if you want a 4-hour stream, find a 4-hour stream or stream 4 hours. We're not doing 4-hour stream. Oh, that's dangerous. That's very dangerous. Okay, let's get into this. Um, yeah, where? Something in my eye. Okay, I'm gonna switch to purple. Okay. Oh, heads up for after I get done the 3 rows of the temperature blanket for this week. If you're gonna crochet along with me, this get your yarn and hook, and it'll be an easy tutorial that I'll help you guys with. But that's after we do this here. Oh, Hobby Lobby. Cool. Where? Oh, lost my thread snips. So what? Um, any specific types of yarn you got? No, it's not going to be Tunisian. It will not be Tunisian tonight. Speaking of which, Thursday stream, um, I think you're gonna like Thursday stream for when I teach stitches, because the 2 stitches I've chose um are really pretty. Hey Grammy, neon colors, scrubby, scrubby. What do you mean scrubby? No Mexicana. I got a little bit of Mexicana here. So how is everyone's progress on any projects you're doing? Not necessarily crochet. Oh, okay. Are they like made of like a nylon or polyester? I'm gonna move my yarn bowl out of the way. That all over there. I mean, you can I know you can make like pot holders and dishcloths with cotton, but usually it's if they're going to be like washing pots and pans, usually you might want something a little bit uh, sturdier. Wait a minute, I gotta check something. Okay, just for a second there, I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, wait, am I doing the right week? But yeah, I'm doing the right week. Don't mind me. Oh, cool. Yeah, brush up on those skills. Practice, practice. Blanket is starting to get a little unruly here, and it's only 17 rows in. Let's see. We sent a picture. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Yarn bee. Um, um, no, thank you. I've never heard of it, but looking at the picture, it does look like there might be some nylon or polyester in it. It does look very scrubby like. Yeah, I've never heard of scrubology. I'm assuming that's a Hobby Lobby line. Yeah, I love to at least test it out a little bit, do a little swatch. I like the colors, especially that pink color. Here, let me that's what she sent me. I like the colors a lot, and it definitely has something in there because it's got a little bit of a sparkle, a little sheen to it. That's probably the nylon or polyester that's in it. I'll share some of my pale green. There you go. Dirty up some pots and pans, and then after we eat and craft, then we can test them out. Sounds like a good plan. Yes, I can share some. Sad green. I don't have enough sad green. Sad green's not shareable. Yucky pukey green is. Actually, um, um, if we make a swatch out of our dishcloth or a rag or whatever out of that scrubology stuff, and I've got some cotton yarn and make a dishcloth out of that, we can do a side by side comparison. Everybody's on cleanup duty. Oops, taking the whole camera. pulling out more slack. So this ball of yarn that's in here is a little compressed in that bag. And it's not really easing out that well. Oh no, no, I'm not doing the wine glasses. I'll end up breaking them. Speaking of wine, is anybody imbibing this evening? I think Grammy said that you were gonna have some tonight. Maybe. Let me know. No, we're good. I was gonna say, let me know if you could see everything good, but I think you can. Well, if it falls apart, that's on the fault of whoever crocheted it. Or unless it's water soluble yarn, which kind of defeats the purpose. No excuses. Oh, a couple other terms. I knew these terms, but I hadn't really thought of them for a while. Basically, what we're doing here with this temperature blanket, if you guys are actively crocheting along with me, that is called a CAL, a CAL. It's a crochet along. And then what was the other? There's some other term I heard. Oh, you know how the other week or the other day I was having an issue with a ball of yarn and had yarn barf and tangles. So we know what yarn barf is. Do you all know what yarn chicken is? People who crochet or not bok bok. Yarn chicken is if you have a project and you get near the end of the project, like it has to be a specific amount of rows and stitches. and it looks like you're going to run out of yarn and you don't have any more to add to it, and you're trying to finish it without coming up short, that's called playing yarn chicken. And I know I've played yarn chicken before on certain projects, especially if I've got little tiny scraps, balls of yarn, like really small ones, and I'm making a scarf or whatever, and it's like, okay, I just need 4 more stitches for this row, and end up short. Yeah, exactly, Grammy. Tech, cro- crochet, I can't say that word. Crocheter? I can't say that word. I say crocheters. And that is true. You can technically crochet anything. If it's like a long strand of something, you can crochet anything. I don't know how difficult it is. I've only ever had I've never had real ramen. I've only ever had that, like, um what is it called? Top ramen or cup of noodles. That's not real ramen. You mean salt? Yeah. Cinderella, you've lived on ramen. Oh, crocheteer. Mm-hmm. That's just too bougie for me. Crocheteer. At the end of that row, yeah, we're still doing purple, blue alternating. Now I gotta do blue. I like the term I like, and it sounds a little, what I would call it. It sounds a little non PG 13. Hooker. Gonna crochet a deer. No, I like the term hooker. Flip everything over. You know, by the summertime, this is not going to be fun because I'm going to have this heavy blanket laying on my lap and half the desk and on the floor. Yeah, okay. You are not a bougie crocheter. Okay, no, we're not tearing up anyone's crotch. Yeah, I should have thought about that, but oh well. We're in the second row. I think I'm on the second row. Let me just double check something. Hold on, I gotta double check. Okay, yeah, we're good. We're good. No, I've been like I said, I've been frogging old projects, and some of the ones I was undoing, they were two strands together, and some of them are that really fun novelty eyelash yarn. And the problem is when you try to separate those two strands from each other, you end up saying some things that you shouldn't say. Oh, cool. Yeah, that I mean that's how all crochet stitches, Tunisian, regular, whatever, it all came about. They were just people experiment and come up with things. So bring it with you on Saturday. I'd love to see it. Front loop only in Tunisia. Oh, you went into like the top of it instead of the rungs of the ladder. Okay. Yeah, I can see that would definitely be less dense. Yeah, if you do every other one, it will look a little loose. It's just the nature of Tunisian. It's because you've got the forward and then the return pass and the way the stitches, any of them are formed. Um, Cling Miko, you still here? Saturday, I know you don't. You said you don't have a set of Tunisian hooks. Saturday, if you wanted to try Tunisian, um, I got plenty of hooks. And then that way, you'll see if it's something you like. Okay. The problem is most craft stores don't carry Tunisian hooks. If they do, they only carry one size, if that. Even standard hooks, like standard Tunisian hooks. So instead of you ordering them all and then decide you might not like it, but you probably will, because I'm not going to say all of them, but most Tunisian stitches are somewhat easy. Okay, yeah, I've got duplicates too if you need any extra. Yeah, neither does Michael's. And like I said, if Michael's does, it's only one. There is a yarn. They call those LYS's, local yarn shops. There's one in Annapolis on Forest Drive, you know, the Festival Shopping Plaza. Um, you know, on the Forest Drive side, the building that's like a standalone building that sits close to Forest Drive, like not the building where the Halloween store was, but the next one between there and Home Depot. There's one there. It's called the Yarn Garden. I've never been in it. Um, all I know is usually in a local yarn shop, most likely they're not going to carry your well-known brands like Lionheart and Karen. I mean, not Lionheart. Lion brand, Karen, Red Heart, and all of that. They're going to carry more niche yarns, and they're going to have a lot of natural fibers. Yeah, and they're probably going to be expensive depending on what the fiber is. And I can understand that if they are hand dyed and hand spun and local local yarn producers. Yeah, but we're not in Winona. And I actually, before I started the stream, I looked it up. There's a bunch over in like the northern DC suburbs, but there's also one I think up in the Timonium area. But I think the closest one to the Anne Arundel County area is in the Yarn Garden in Annapolis. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's one in Annapolis off of Forest Drive, further down Forest Drive, over by the Cherry Grove CVS. I think in that there's like those a little tiny weird shopping center that's there with it. In that area, I think there might be one. I mean, if anything else, it'd be cool just to go and look. But I don't even know if they would have have Tunisian hooks. They might. Your best bet is Amazon, and then there's high end Tunisian hooks. Like they can get real pricey. Because we don't have yarn here in Maryland. Yeah, it is in that Newtown area. But it's when you turn in there, there's that gas station, and then right behind that is like that daycare place, and then I think it's right near in that area. So it's on the right when you go into that. I forgot what that one's called. But anyway, like I said, we've got Tunisian hooks and extra hooks and all that good stuff. And you got like assorted sizes. Oh, cool. That's actually a good price. If you got a wide variety of sizes and you get regular ones and corded ones, depending on the hook. Because some of them, the way they form the hooks, sometimes they could be less than desirable. Okay, we're almost done this row, and then after that, one more row for the night, and then we will do the other technique that I've got. Okay. Um, Heads up with the bamboo. Depending on the quality of them, you might find there might be little burrs on the hook part that you might have to take a little bit of sandpaper and smooth it off because sometimes it can be a little rough. I haven't. Well, my double-ended hooks are bamboo, but I haven't used them enough, so I don't have enough experience with them. Some people cannot stand bamboo hooks. Some people can't stand aluminum. I really cannot stand plastic ones. Now, if they are the really large sizes, it kind of has to be plastic, because if not, the hook would be too heavy. But I hate plastic. They even have, and even this is an Tunisian and regular crochet. They even have wooden hooks, like really expensive, really pretty. Um, exotic woods, and the handles are all turned a certain way, and we're at the end of this row, and then we're going to go back to purple. I'm tired of this alternating back and forth. Oh, make certain I cut the right tail. Why am I doing a double? With the blue for tonight, and flip all of this over. What do you mean a yarn guide? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a ring, and it's got a loop through it. I've seen those. Yeah, I've never used one. I don't know if I would like that. Yeah, especially if you're used to that sensation. More yarn out. All I know is it needs to warm up because I'm tired of these colors. Everyone went quiet. I guess you're all stitching along. Yep, crochet along. There's also something called a MAL, M-A-L, a make along, and that's basically you could do any type of project in a doesn't have to be crochet. Yeah, I know. So if we had a make along, somebody could be knitting, somebody could be weaving, somebody could be crocheting, somebody could be quilting, somebody could be drawing. I need to take a sip of my tea. And Grammy's over there sipping along. Whatever works. I mean, I could. I just don't want to end up boring everybody. I don't know about 4 or 5 hours. I mean, I could go more than two. I would just have to find enough, prep enough in advance, enough content to fill that time frame. Because like my Stitch Dictionary Thursdays, I don't know if there will be enough content for that long of a stream. I'm not. I am not crocheting for 10 hours. I mean, I have heard of people not necessarily crocheting, but streaming for however long marathon streams, and those are streamers who are affiliate or partner, meaning they can earn money, and they will do those marathon streams, and then whatever they earn during that marathon, they'll donate to like a charity. I understand that, but if I do every stitch in the book, then a couple weeks from now I'm gonna have nothing to stream. That's why I'm doing stitches throughout to space it out. And hours. I do have latch hook, but I don't know how thrilling that would be. think I have a hit or something over there still. All I know is this blanket is starting to feel really nice and soft. I like the texture of it, of this stitch. When I get done this row, which we're almost down to the end of this row, then we'll switch gears, and that segment can take a little longer. Yeah, yeah, that'll be the day. Operating a chainsaw here in my room. I think Grammy's had too much wine. Well, it ain't gonna be at 8 o'clock at night. I'm not gonna be wood carving on stream at 8 o'clock at night when it's dark. Me with a chainsaw, really? Y'all are funny. Okay, home stretch. Not only the Facebook page would light up, the fire engines and the ambulances and oh god, no, no, we don't need one of those. uh, and if it's on that '70s show, I think they were doing something else in crafting. I think they were getting inspiration another way. Okay, we're done this row. I'm actually going to leave it right like that. It's getting to the point where I gotta kind of have to fold it up. Adult party for what? I don't don't know what y'all are talking about. Oh, you mean weed? Yeah, no. It's just trying to organize my strands of yarn before they become a total mess. Okay, that's it for the temperature blanket for tonight. So the other night you all said, or some of you said, oh, excuse me. Some of you said you were rusty on granny squares. I do not want a wood burning kit. So you guys just said you were rusty on granny squares. That's a bad. There, now you can see it. Okay. So if you guys are ready, and if not, that's fine. I can wait. I will give you a refresher. Why yarn barf? Yarn barf comes from the inside of your skein. From that end. So we can do a review, a very slow review on granny squares. Okay. And we're using a different color today. We're using pink. That's okay. I don't know if when you taught me if you did it, but I know I did it when I taught Clay Miko, and I've taught other people to crochet and just regular ordinary rows. I would tell them to chain 20. So they chain 20, and then I'd say, hand it to me, and I take the hook out and I rip it all out. I said, do 20 again. Practice, practice, practice. Oh, you want the magic circle? Okay. I can show you the magic circle, but with a magic circle, you're not going to get this center opening in this granny square. There are other granny squares, and there are other crocheting in the round where a magic circle comes in handy. You basically want to use a magic circle if you don't want to see the space. That magic circle makes a closed, tight center where you don't actually see the hole. So I can show both of those. I know how to do the magic circle, but hold on a second. How do you do the magic circle? It's very rare that I'm doing them. Give me a second. Oh, no. Okay. I got it now. Do you want me to show you the magic circle? I need to do it fresh because again, I rarely ever use it. It frogged all of this, so it's all kind of wavy. Again, magic circle is when you want a closed center on your crochet in the round. So what the best way is to hold the tail in your hand like this, wrap it around, so hold it here, the tail, and then the working yarn is above. wrap it around your 2 fingers, and you cross them. You form an X. Put your thumb where they meet, and keep wrapping it onto the back of your hand. Let me show that again. So you put your tail in your hand, wrap it around 2 fingers, cross them, put your thumb where they meet, rotate your hand, and this is your working yarn, and you're going to hold it with your ring finger. So you're going to go under this loop and bring that loop up. So again, put your tail in your hand, wrap it around 2 fingers, cross them, thumb holding the cross, rotate. Use your ring finger to hold it. Go under the first loop and bring up the other loop, and when you bring it up, you're grabbing a hold of that yarn, bring it up, and turn it, and I just split my yarn. Under the first, grab the back one, bring it up, and keep it like this. You're going to gently lay it in your hand so it forms a ring. Your working yarn here, bring to the back, bring the working yarn, that's this loop. This loop here on the hook that goes through this ring, it's down here. And that's what you're going to hold on to. So you're going to, these strands on this part of the ring are twisted. So you want to keep them twisted like that. And then you will crochet into this ring. You want me to show that again? Let me show that again. So your tail's in your hand, wrap it around 2 fingers, cross them, and where they cross, put your thumb, rotate your hand, keeping this behind that first loop. So put it there, in between your middle and your ring finger. So that's what's holding it. So your thumb's still holding where they cross, your ring finger's holding these together. Under the first loop, grab the back loop, bring it under, and turn, and bring it up. Take your fingers out, and just let that sit on your fingers. Be very gentle with it. Grab the working yarn like you normally would crochet, however you hold your yarn. And then I'm just going to do doubles. So we're going to chain 2. And when we do this, we're going to crochet into this center, the ring that we made. The tail, original tail, is here twisted with the ring. So we've chained 2. That counts as our first double. And you can do whatever stitch you want. I'm just doing this as an example. And I'm going to do a double into it. And it's hard to really show while it's in this stage, but I just did a double into it. Might help if I zoomed in. Okay. And then you will do however many doubles the pattern calls for. So I did 3, we're going to do 6. And you're working into the magic ring, and you're going over top of all of the strands that were in that ring. That's 5, and that's 6. Does that make sense so far? If not, I can rip it out and start over. And if this yarn is not working, I can pick a different color yarn. It's okay. I'm actually going to start over because instead of doubles, I'm going to do singles. So I'll start over and be another review again. Again, put your tail in your hand, wrap it around your first two fingers, cross them. So they were here, crossing them. Okay, we're not there yet. Hold on. Okay, the chain, if the chain counts as a single stitch, that is all depending on the pattern you're following. I'm just showing you how to stitch into the magic circle. So we're going to have our tail here. Wrap over your first two fingers, cross them, put your thumb holding the cross, flip, ring finger holding it in place. Under the first strand, over top, bring it through and bring it up. Carefully take your fingers out while that strand is still, that loop is still made, that ring is still made. We're going to tighten up, and I'm going to do single crochet. If you need to rip out, that's fine. So I'm going to do one chain, and then I'm going to do just a couple of singles. Two, and normally your chain, whatever chain you make, usually will count as your first stitch. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And all I was doing is each time I was putting the hook into this ring, into the magic ring here. Now, what we're going to do is all of this ring, just let it go however it wants. And we're going to slip stitch into our first chain, our first stitch that we made in the round. So we're connecting it into a circle. And again, if I need to stop and go slow again, let me know. So I'm just doing a slip stitch. And then once you secure it there, pull your loop out. And let me know if I'm in frame too. Pull your loop out so you have extra loop so you don't lose anything. Flip it on the back. And that tail you have, to make it a magic ring, pull that tail. You should be able to pull it. And pulling that tail will cinch it up tight where you don't see the hole in the center of your work. That's how to do the magic ring. What do you mean? Slip stitch? Slip stitch to join. Okay, I got to start over because I've already closed that up. So I'm going to clip that. Let me start over. I'm going to walk through this again real slow. Tail in the hand. Wrap it around 2 fingers and cross them. Thumb to hold. Flip. Ring finger to hold. Under this first strand and over the second. Bring it up and over and bring your hook up. Carefully remove your fingers. And now you're going to carefully hold that ring the way it is there. And you're going to chain 1. That counts as a single crochet. Go into the center of your ring. Pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. It's a single crochet. So we have 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do 6. Usually it's 6. The pattern might change, whatever. So that's 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So we've got our 6 single crochets stitched into the ring. We're going to go to our very first, it's hard to show this, our very first stitch that we did into that ring, which is right here. So we just finished here. We're going to the opposite end, put our hook in the top of the stitch. That's a little tight. I'm going to get it close enough. Yeah, that stitch was very tight. Okay, we're just going to go in the next one. It doesn't matter. We're going to go into the top of the stitch, yarn over. We're going to do a slip stitch. So we've gone into the very first stitch. We're just making a circle. Yarn over, bring it through the stitch, and then bring that same loop through the loop that was already on the hook. That's a slip stitch. Then to finish the magic circle, so we've joined it in a circle. I always pull a loop out so we have extra so we don't actually lose our stitching. Take the hook out for right now, flip it over, and our tail, we're going to pull. And you have to give it a tug sometimes, and my yarn is not the best yarn for this because it's seen better days. Pull it tight, and that will cinch up all of your stitches to create a closed center. Oh, blurry. Would it help if I used a different color yarn? I could use orange maybe. It's the lighting too. I don't want to use that green. Let me find another thing of yarn that I could possibly use. Yeah, it takes practice. The first couple times I did it, I sucked at it. Okay, we're going to switch to the baby blue, because maybe the baby blue might show up better. Okay. Now keep in mind, the magic loop is if you want something that has a closed center. Most granny squares don't have a closed center. So this you would start with a chain and connect the chain to itself. And then work around that way. Because, okay, I'll do an example in the blue. Maybe the blue might show it better. So again, tail in the hand, wrap around 2 fingers, cross them, thumb holding the cross, flip, ring finger holding it together, put the hook under the first, over the second, bring it under, and over. Yes. I'm going to do the magic loop one more time, and then we will do a regular granny. So now we've got our chain, our loop on the hook, and we've got our magic ring here set up. We're going to do 1 chain, and then we're going to do single crochets, so we'll have 6. So that first chain counts as 1. That's 2 single crochets, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? I know it's kind of difficult to see the stitches, but that's 6 single crochets all going into the middle of this ring. Now I'm going to slip stitch into that very first stitch we did here. So go to the other end, put it into the top of that stitch. I can get it in there. So, we've gone into the stitch, yarn over, bring it through the stitch, and then bring that same loop through the loop that was on the hook. So we've created our ring, our circle. That's 6 stitches in a circle. Flip it and pull that yarn on the back, that tail, tight. Now, if you're going to do a magic ring like this, you've got 6 stitches. Normally, for the next row, what you would do is let's say we're going to chain 1, and you're going to stitch into each stitch, and you do it however many times to increase. So you're actually finding each individual stitch you did and stitching into it. There are patterns where you do that and you chain other ones and you go from there, but that's how you close a magic circle. Now I'm going to show you how to do the starting ring for a regular granny. So you have an open center to your square. So this, do a regular chain 6. Do regular like you were going to make rows. So you put a slip knot on your hook, and then chain 6. Just like you were going to do a blanket or a scarf or whatever. So you've got 6 chains. You're going to go back to the very first chain, put your hook through that chain, yarn over, bring it through the chain, and that same loop through your loop that was on the hook. And that right there is the center ring of a traditional granny square. Okay? That's how I made that ring. You got it? You got it this way here? Sometimes this might be easier if you're going for the look of a traditional granny where you got all, because you're going to have the holes throughout the rest of it. So it makes sense to have a hole in the center. Certain things, like if you're going to make amigurumi, which is 3-dimensional crochet, like stuffed animals and little characters, whatever, you're going to want the magic circle. You're not going to want to have all that open space. But we're doing grannies. So now, if you've linked your chain That's okay. You don't have to be fast. So you did your 6 chains, and all you do is you join the chains together, the last one to the first one, and that's what we have here. Now we're going to do a regular traditional granny. We're going to chain 2, okay? Are we all on the same page here? If not, if we're not on the same page that we have here, let me know. Okay? So you've got your 6 chains and you've slip stitched it together to join, and then you've chained 2 more that are coming off. Okay, so you just have you have 6 chains. Have you connected those chains together? Meaning, let me do it again. I can do it real quick. Yeah. No. No, 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 no. Okay. I'm going to go real slow. So we got a slip knot on our hook. We're going to start over. Slip knot on the hook. Chain 6. We have 6 chains. Just like if you're going to make a blanket. A really narrow blanket. Let me know when you got that far. Okay? Now, you're going to go back to the very first chain you did. Here, down here where your slip knot is. You're going to put your hook into that first chain. So you're going to skip all the other chains. You're going to go to the very first chain at the other end of your chain, the very first one, and slip stitch it together. So you're going to put it into the chain, yarn over, bring it through the chain, and then continue bringing that loop through this hook, this loop. And that's a slip stitch. So now we've got a ring. 6 chains connected, no beginning, no end. Okay? Now, we're not doing anything into this ring yet. We're going to do it with our working yarn, chain 2. See how you got our ring, and then we got this little piece going off the edge. So you just chain 2. Hey, Gold Misfit, welcome. I'm teaching how slowly, very slowly, teaching how to do a granny square, which if you don't know what granny squares are, that's a granny square. Okay, so we're on the same page now. We've got our ring and we've got 2 chains coming off. We've did our 6, chained them to, slip stitch them together to make a ring, and then we have 2 more chains. Okay, the rest of it is easy because you're not going into any stitches. The rest of it, besides making a chain, and besides doing, oh, well, that part's easy. Just thinking ahead. Everything else is going into a large chain space. Okay? So we've got our 2 chains here that we just made. That counts as a double crochet. We're going to wrap our hook, and we're going to put the hook into the ring. See my fingers coming through the ring? You're going to put the hook into the center ring, under everything. Let me get it on frame again. So We've wrapped it, we've yarned over because you're making a double. Go into that center ring, yarn over, and bring it through the ring. So you've got 3 loops on the hook. Okay? What about Clay Miko? Have we got to this point? Now we know what an elementary school teacher is. It's like, everybody on the same page? Okay, so now we're just going to finish a double crochet. So we're going to yarn over through the first 2 and yarn over through the last 2. You're just doing a double crochet, but instead of going into the stitch below, you're going into the chain space, which is this hole in the center. That's all it is. So you've got 2 double crochets because your first 2 chains here that you made counts as 1, and we just did a double crochet, and now we're going to make another double crochet. So you're going to wrap your yarn, because when you do a double, you wrap your yarn once into that middle hole, yarn over and bring it up through the hole, 3 on the hook, and finish your double. You yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the last 2 hoops. That right there, so you've got 3. So again, your first 2 chains that you made, we're not counting the ring. So we've done the ring, we've done the 2 chains off the ring, that counts as a double crochet, and then we did 2 actual double crochets. That right there, the ring in this cluster of stitches, is the ring here and this cluster of stitches. So we've done one side of the first round. Okay, we're just doing 1 round so far. And this is a basic granny square. There are variations on a granny square where you might do different stitches and do other different decorative stuff. We're doing plain, ordinary, run-of-the-mill, basic granny squares. So that right there, those 3 double crochets that are all lined up together, I refer to those as clusters because you're doing those in a group. Okay? You're not doing double crochets together where it's a more complicated stitch. You're doing 3 double crochets in a row. Now we come to a corner. And anytime we make a corner, and we're doing a square, we're not doing a triangle, we're not doing a hexagon, we're not doing an octagon, we're doing a square. Anytime that we're coming to a corner in a square, you're chaining 2. So you chain 2. Doing 2 chains means it's a corner. So I think everybody can chain 2 after that series of doubles that we have. Now what we're going to do, and again, stitching into the center of our ring, we're going to do 3 double crochets all into that ring. So wrap our yarn in, yarn over, 3 on the hook. Yes, 3 double crochets in the center, yarn over through the first 2 and yarn over through the last 2, just like a regular ordinary double crochet. And you're going to do that 2 more times. Until you have another cluster of 3 double crochets. Okay? Once you get that done, to give you more room, you could take these clusters, because these, where they join here, they're just wrapped around the center ring. So Yes, you do a cluster of 3, 2 chains, a cluster of 3. Now what you can do is you can take those 3 and you can move them down a bit to give you more room to reach the center. So we've done one side and most of a second side. Actually, we've done 2 sides. After we get that second cluster, that's here, we're going to do 2 chains. That means we formed another corner. Now we're going to go 3 more double crochets into that center ring. 1, 2, and 3. Are we all on the same page so far? I'll let everybody catch up. So when we started, just to review, we did 6 chains. We joined the first and last chains together to make a ring. So we've got our ring formed. Then we chain 2. That counts as a double crochet. Now we do 2 double crochets into that center ring. So those 3 together is 1 cluster. And then we do 2 chains. The 2 chains forms a corner. And then we do another cluster of 3 double crochets. That forms another side. And then we do 2 more chains, forms a second corner. Then we do a cluster of 3 double crochets. And again, anytime you do a double, you're going into the center. That forms our third side. Now we're going to go to our third corner, chain 2, and we're going to do our last cluster into the center, and they're all double crochets. And you're going to do 3 of them. It's always 3 for this basic granny. Did 2, and there's 3. So now we have our 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 3 corners. But a square has 4 corners, so we need to do 2 more chains. That will be our 4th corner. And now, to join it together, you're going to go to the top of our first double crochet, which technically was 2 chains because that counts as a double crochet. The very top of that, into that top of that stitch, you're going to slip stitch it together. So again, slip stitch, you go into the top of the stitch, yarn over, bring it through the stitch, and then take that same loop that you brought through the stitch that was already on the hook. And you've closed it off. That is our first round of a granny square. So has everybody gotten to that point? And I'm running out of tea. I'm going to take a quick little break. Okay, so and it's going to take practice. And the main thing is trying to get the concept. If you can get that ring, that first ring, yeah, this is the best way to do a square. The magic circle that I showed earlier, that's good if you want an actual circle, because you're going into each individual stitch. This, you're not going into individual stitches, you're stitching into chain spaces. Okay. Yeah, don't chain too tight, and a bigger hook would help. Okay, so now we're going to go for round 2. And just like Tunisian crochet, you don't flip your work. Granny squares, you don't flip your work because you're going around and around and around. So, this is the the part that I got a really close up and I'm going to show you. So there are ways to do it. I'm going to show you the way that I like to do it. There are other ways of starting the row. There's not a right or wrong way. The way I do it is I always want to start in one of my previous corner spaces. So our next corner space will be here. You never go backwards. You're always going to go in the same direction. So I need to get this loop, the loop that's on my hook, over here. So to do that, we're going to do a couple slip stitches. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on that side. So where it came out, where we joined, the next stitch and the following stitch, we're going to slip stitch. So you're going to go into the next stitch, go in here, yarn over, bring it through, and then bring that same loop through the loop that was already on the hook. That's a slip stitch. So now we've moved that loop over 1 stitch. It was here, we've moved it over. Now we're going to go through the next one, yarn over, bring it through, bring that same loop through the loop that was already on the hook, and slip stitch it over 1 more. Well, now we need to be into, we moved it over, it was here, now it's here. Now we need to be into this space. So now we're going to go into the chain space. You're not going to go into the chain, but into this big old hole, yarn over, and then we're going to bring that loop through here. So bring it, and there we go. Now we've moved the loop that was here when we joined our first row. We've slip stitched over to this chain space. Does that make sense? And while you work on that, and you're just doing, okay, you're at the top of this one, so hold on, I'll back up real quick. So you were here, gotta get in frame. So you were at the top of this one. Now you're going to slip stitch into this corner. See the corner that you made from this previous row? See this hole? You're going to slip stitch into there. You're going to put your hook into that corner hole, yarn over, bring it up onto the front side. That was the yarn over we did. I know that there's a glare. And bring that through this, there, to that loop. So now you're right here. When we joined, our join loop was here. We've just moved it over to the next corner. I'm going to take a quick break and get some more drink, and then we'll do round 2. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So we've moved our hook, our loop, when we join from that row. Yeah, however many times you can get it, slip stitch through every stitch until you get to there, depending on how you joined. Usually when you join the first round, you're in the top of the first double, so it's already up on top of the first double. I usually slip stitch the next two and then through this chain space, so I do actually 3 slip stitches, however many that you need. Now we're doing the second round. So the second round, we're going to chain 2 because we need to build our height up for the row. Just like we did here, remember we had the original ring? We chain 2, which counts as a double. So this chain 2, again, we're in a corner. This chain 2 counts as a double. Now we're going to do 2 more doubles into this corner. Okay? So you end up having, into that corner space, I really got to fix my setup because everything's kind of blurry. Well, not blurry, but it's washed out. So we were in the, we came up, we slip stitched to the corner. For the second round, we chain 2, which counts as a double crochet, and do 2 more double crochets all into that corner space. And it helps me, once I do that, take these 3 and move it over to the side, because those 3 stitches, that cluster, okay, that was weird. Everything kind of refreshed for me. Oh, it did it. Okay, I'm back. Okay, yeah, Twitch messed up again. Why is it saying it's unstable? Give me a second. Okay. Yeah, it was a Twitch issue. Okay. Anyway, so where were we? Let me. So when we. That reminds me of something that's totally unrelated, but the way you phrase that, Norfairy, and I'm pretty certain, knowing you, you've probably seen it. There's a series on YouTube called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. That is right up your alley. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's like 6 videos. They were pretty long videos. Anyway, that was totally random. Had nothing to do with. Okay. So back to this after I was interrupted. So we slip stitch to the corner. We chain 2, which counts as a double crochet, and do 2 more double crochets. That is our first cluster of our second round. So we all got into this stage. We've got our first one. Even if it looks rough, it's all going to look rough when you first start. I'll wait until, if everybody's on the same page as me. You notice here, okay, we have a square. Well, we're going to be making another round or another square. We're going to go around the square again. So we're here. We're near the corner. So we're going to get ready to turn the corner. Hey, that's good. Hey, brag. If you got it, you got it. So we're here, we're at the corner, so we're going to get ready to turn the corner to do the side. So if we're at the corner, that means we chain 2, because anytime we are at a corner, we chain 2. And then to round the corner, we need another cluster of 3 double crochets into that chain space. So do 3 into that corner space. And with grannies, you're not searching individual stitches unless you're slip stitching when you finish. But to do the bulk of it, you're just going into a chain space. Let me pull my the loop out a little bit and fluff this up so I can show you. So we've done our first round. We've got our first cluster. We've got 2 chains and a second cluster, and that's all going in that corner space. And if you notice, directly below a cluster, so here's a cluster. Yes, so you did your 3 into the corner space, chain 2, and then another 3 all in that same space. This big hole here, you've got 3 doubles, 2 chains, and then 3 doubles, all in that corner. You notice we got a cluster here. Well, the next row down, we've got a cluster of stitches. The next row down, we have a chain space. They alternate. I'm going to show you my example real quick. We've got a chain space, a cluster here. The next row up, there's a hole. There's a chain space. The next row up, there's a cluster. And that works throughout the whole thing. Each row is alternate. Yeah, there's probably a delay because of technical issues. But there's always going to be, it's always going to alternate. So this is a 3-round granny square. This cluster is from our first round. This is from our second, and that's from our third. But if we go in a straight line, we've got a cluster, a space, and a cluster. If that makes any sense. So we've got our corner clusters done. 1 cluster, 2 chain, and another cluster. And again, when I say cluster, that means just 3 doubles in a row. Now, we've got to fill this space here. If we end up going into this corner here, we're not going to, but if we do that, it's not going to be a square, it's going to be all tight. So all you have to do is, if you look at the row below, and there's a cluster, all you have to do, and this is the side of the square. Here's a corner. This is the corner. We're still on the side. So if we look at the row below and there's a cluster, all we have to do is do 1 chain. 1 chain. The row below will tell you cluster. That means on this row we do a chain. And then in the next chain space, we're going to do a cluster of 3 double crochets. So we're going to wrap, go in, do our first double, our second double, and our third double. Let me show that. So again, we've worked this corner, again, cluster, 2 chains, because 2 chains means a corner, and then another cluster. We're still on the side. We do 1 chain, which is opposite of the row below, which is a cluster. So we do the 1 chain, and then we do another cluster of 3, which now I'm going to rotate this, which will take us up to this corner. So once we get to this point, let me know. My yarn is all wonky. Exactly, because we're at a corner, and when we come to the corner, corners always mean 2 chains, and then to round the corner, we have to have another cluster, and that's all in that same corner space. So we've got our grouping here, 3 doubles, 2 chains, 3 doubles. Then here, since it's a side, we do 1 chain, and then we do repeat it. We got our 3 doubles, 2 chains, and our 3 doubles. Now we're on a side. What comes next? After we do those 3, if we're on the side, one chain, yes. Do a chain, and now we've gone to this corner, our third corner, so we do a cluster of 3, just what we did on the other 2 corners. And after we do that cluster of 3, we're at the corner. And that means 2 chains. After we do the 2 chains, we're actually rounding the corner, and we have to put our cluster in. So we got our 3 corners done. And now we're on the side, so we do 1 chain. And that brings us to our next corner, which we have to do a cluster of 3. And we're back to a corner again, which is 2 chains. And to round the corner, we have to do another cluster. I'll wait for anybody to catch up to where I am now. Okay, so we've got all 4 corners done. Playmaker, are you caught up? Hey, hey, as long as it kind of looks like a square. So now we've got our 4 corners done. We're on the side. We do 1 chain because that completes this space here, because you're going to have an empty hole, but it's opposite this cluster. And then we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet. Yep, bigger hook and more practice. So we're going to slip stitch into the top of the next, of your very first double crochet that you made on that round. And it's right across. It will tell you, it basically shows you where to go. You go into the top of that, you do a slip stitch. And now, slip stitch your way to the corner. So I slip stitch into the top of the first, because you got 3 double crochets here. I slip stitch into the top of the first one. I'm now going to slip stitch into the second and into the third, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the chain space. So I've already done the first. When I joined, I slip stitch into the first. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the second, into the third, and now we've got this corner space. We're going to slip stitch into that corner space, bring it up, and bring it through the loop. That's a slip stitch. So again, we've migrated our loop from here. When we joined, we were here. We've moved over here. The next row is the exact same thing. You just do, there'll be more. So it's the exact same thing. We start in the corner. So we're going to chain 2. So we have enough. The chain 2 is kind of like a turning chain when you do rows. That turning chain, the reason that you do a turning chain when you do regular rows back and forth is it will establish the height of your stitches. So if you didn't have that turning chain, your stitches look all weird. So those 2 brings the hook up to the right height from the previous row, and that sets the size. So that was our first, that's 2 chains, which counts as our first double crochet. We're going to do 2 more double crochets. Which creates 1 cluster. And I always take that first cluster and move it over to give me some room, because it's going to go in that position anyway. And we're at a corner, so we chain 2. If I'm going too fast right now, let me know. But it's pretty much the exact same things we've already done. We're just continuing it and we're expanding it. We're making our square bigger. So we've got our cluster here, our 2 chains, and now we're going to do our second cluster because we're rounding the corner. And there's our first corner. Again, all clusters are 3 doubles, and all corners are 2 chains. If you need me to keep going slow, let me know. For now, this previous row was a cluster, and we do a chain. And now we've got a space here. Anytime there's a space, we're doing a cluster of 3. Even though it's not a corner, it's still a space, and that will continue the pattern. We've got a cluster here from row 1, row 2 we've got a space, and row 3 we've got a cluster. Once we get to it and we do row 4, there'll be a space here, and then row 5 will be a cluster, and so on and so on. And that's how it is throughout the whole granny square. Okay. It's all in the corners. In the corners, it's always going to be when you start, you chain 2, which counts as a double. Counts as a double crochet. You chain 2, then 2 more double crochets. Then you chain 2 to make the corner space, and then you do 3 more doubles. That is always in all 4 corners. On the sides, in between clusters, so there's a cluster here and a cluster here. In between the clusters, there's always 1 chain. You do that all the way around, and then when you get here to the end, you're going to slip stitch into the top of the round of the first double crochet that you made. I think that's it. I think that answers your question, I think. Yes. The only difference is the corners are always going to be the same. The only difference is the numbers of clusters on each side and the numbers of chains on each side are going to grow. The corners always stay the same. So we've done a cluster, and we're still on the side. We're going to chain 1, and now we're going to do a cluster into our next corner, which means 3 doubles. And it's a corner. So we've done a cluster. We need 2 chains, because 2 chains forms a corner. We're rounding the corner, which means we do another cluster. Yes, on the sides. Okay, on the sides, in between each cluster, which is a group of 3, in between each cluster is 1 chain. The only time you don't do 1 chain is when you're doing corners between clusters, and those you do 2. The reason you do that is because there's more stuff going on in there, and you need more space to form the actual corner. Now again, this all applies to basic granny squares. There's other versions of a square that might have a different stitch pattern, but this is the run-of-the-mill basic granny. So now we're on the side, we've rounded the corner. We're going to do one chain because we finished a cluster. Now we're going to do a next cluster, and we always stitch into a chain space. We're never going into individual stitches to do our doubles. It's easy that way, so you don't have to search for the spot to put the hook. The holes are pretty large. I can put my finger through the holes. So we've got our next cluster. We're still on the side because we haven't reached the corner yet. So we do a chain. Now we can go into the corner and do our next cluster. We're at the corner, so we do 2 chains, and to round the corner, do one more cluster again in that same corner space. So we finish that corner, and again, if I'm going too slow, I'm going too fast, or too slow. So we finished a cluster. We can't do another cluster because clusters are never next to each other. There's always some type of chain, amount of chains in between clusters. So we got a cluster, we do one chain, and now we do another cluster into the next chain space from the previous row. So we did a cluster. We can't have another cluster yet because clusters are always separated by chains. Do a chain, and now in the next chain space, which happens to be the corner, do our next cluster. And we're at the corner. It means 2 chains to round the corner. Now we're going to round the corner, do our next cluster. Whoops. So we did the cluster. So now we have to do a chain. And now another cluster goes into the chain space from the row below. Wait, from the side after 3 double crochets, do I chain 1 to get to the corner? Wait. Okay, hold on. We're out. I'm going to rip back. Let's see. Okay, so I think what you're asking is you're right here. You're on the side. You did your 3 double crochets. To get to this, yes. Anytime you do a cluster, the next thing you're going to do is a chain. Clusters never butt up against each other. There's always at least one chain between clusters, because that chain is forming the chain space for when we go around again, we're going to stitch into that. Like the row below, in order for this cluster to go in here, there had to have been a chain under these stitches for those stitches to go through. So that's what that chain is for. Let's go back, and I'm going to finish this corner. And I know it's probably going a little fast, but it's the same thing over and over again. It's just going to grow. So we did our cluster. We can't do another cluster because clusters never touch each other. But we're at a corner, which means 2 chains. Now we can do a cluster to round the corner. So we did a cluster. Oh, that stitch is not looking good. Rip them out and redo those two. Not the best. So we've done our cluster. We can't have another cluster against a cluster, so that means we have to do a chain. And we got a chain space here. We're going to go do another cluster into that chain space. And after the cluster, we do a chain. And since we're at the end of the round, we're slip stitching into the top of the very first double crochet we made on that round. Splitting the yarn. And that right there is 3 rounds of a granny. You can go as big as you want. You can do as small as you want. You can just do 2 rounds. Like the one blanket, my scrappy granny blanket that I've been working on for however many decades, I think I only went around twice. If you wanted to stop at any time, if you wanted to only go around once, twice, 3, however many times, this is where you would finish off. You would just bind off normally. You would cut your chain, pull it through the loop, and then secure your loop, tuck your ends in. The only other thing is, and once you get more used to granny squares, when you start, there's a way to hide your tail. I wasn't going to worry about that tonight because you're still trying to grasp it. I think you guys are getting the hang of granny squares, but that's more advanced to hide the tail as you go along. We're not worried about that. So if I wanted to, also with this, at any time, after round 1, if I wanted to change colors, I can change colors. Just like when you do rows back and forth, you can change colors anytime you want. I wasn't going to get into that because that's more advanced, more complicated. But you'll see a lot of granny squares where one round will be a color, the next will be another, and then each different round is a different color, and it'll repeat, and you can get real colorful with them. Do you want me to continue with round 4? And if I wanted to, I can finish here. This one is 3 rounds. This one's 3 rounds. They're made on the same hook, the same size yarn. I can take these, and then there's different techniques if I want to make a whole bunch of them and then piece them together. There's different techniques of joining. Actually, getting to the point I got to zoom out a little. Yeah, that can be difficult even for me. Anywhere close to it, you don't have to be exactly into that very first double crochet, but get close to the edge, the end there, anywhere that you can, just to secure it. You just don't want to secure it on the 3rd one. You want to get anywhere close by. It doesn't have to be exactly in there. Oh, wait, to start the next round? Are you mean finish? Are you mean joining? Or are you mean slip stitching over to get to the corner? Okay. However you can get there to slip stitch, again, to join, wherever you can get it into slip stitch, and then whatever stitches you can get to slip stitch your way over to the corner. It doesn't have to be exact, just try to get as close as possible. It could also be either how tight you're stitching, and it can also be if you're using a dark colored yarn, sometimes there's difficulty trying to find it, and depending on the size of hook you're using with the type of yarn, there's a lot of factors that could cause that. But basically, however you can slip stitch over to it, get close enough. Like Mika, are you totally lost or still catching up, or? You're done as in like you can't anymore? It's gonna take practice. Oh, you're doing good. Yeah, I can see where your loop is. Just the tops of those stitches there, anywhere along there. However you can get it in there, just work your way to the corner. Yeah, she needs practice. Which, okay, that's great. That's perfect that we could practice granny squares on Saturday. Oh, excuse me. And Tunisian. Tunisian simple stitch. I'm going to do one more round. So I've slip stitched to the corner. And now I can do 2 chains to form a double crochet. And then do 2 more to make my cluster. And I always take that first cluster and move it over to get it in position. And we're at the corner. So we need 2 chains. And we're rounding the corner, which means a cluster. But yeah, your granny square looks great. And actually, I like that color green. That's okay. Saturday, I can give an in-person class. So I've rounded the corner, and I made my cluster. I'm going to chain 1, and now do a cluster in the next chain space. Got done the cluster, do a chain, and now a next cluster in the next chain space. Again, you're not working into individual stitches. You're only going into chain spaces. We've done our cluster, chain 1, and now another cluster into the corner. Are you going to rip out the one you did? And you can do that. I've seen people will do that. Now, they've done it. Each day is a square, and there'll be like smaller squares, not huge squares, smaller squares, and then piece them all together. And then when they get to a certain point, like they have to figure out the math and all to see how many squares are crossed and down. And then usually they'll have a couple extra days that won't fit into the square, and they'll do a border for the last couple days. Or you could do one big, that would be a really big blanket if you do the center one day, the next round another day. You're going to have a huge blanket if you do it that way. Yes, you can also rewatch the stream here up until a week, but then af um they'll always be on YouTube. Because Twitch will delete videos after about a week. Um, if I become affiliate, then they'll keep it up a little longer. But I can see a granny square temperature blanket for a shorter amount of time. Maybe just for like the winter months or the summer months. You could do like a summer one in a lighter weight, breathable yarn, like a lightweight cotton. Yeah, yeah. If you do a seasonal one, like let's say you did a seasonal granny for all 4 seasons, you could tailor the colors for each blanket for that season. So you could do like blues and whites or whatever for winter, and then you could do pastel colors for spring, and then do bright primaries for summer, and then like autumn colors. It's just that for a spring and summer one, you would probably want a lighter weight yarn or a like a cotton. Yeah, because that would be a really. Yeah, you could do that. You could, or you could do. How could you do that? Or not necessarily a temperature blanket. You could do 4 large granny squares. Not necessarily a temperature blanket, but you could do color specific granny squares for different seasons. Like I was thinking, doing like icy colors for winter, fall colors for fall, etc. And then do 4 large seasonal ones. So you could make it any time of year, and then you could piece them together to make one big. I think that's kind of what Clay Miko was talking about. So to look at it, you would see the whole year, not necessarily temperature wise, as in changing colors for that, keeping track of the temperature, but it would look like the colors respective of those seasons. Yeah, it's nothing to do in Minnesota. Yeah, I just finished row 4. Yes, I crochet fast. So like for instance, like let's say this would be a winter square. Let's say, and then I would have another one that would be pastel. Again, they would be bigger, and then so on, and you could do it that way. You would just have to figure out how big you want it. It's going to be square. You figure out how big you want your Afghan, and then divide the width in half, and that's how big you make each square. Grannies and variegated can look really good. Um, let me I'm going to try to pull up a picture. Let's see what we got here. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. Let me... Not really coming up with anything right now. Trying to do a image search and I'm not really finding anything. That's misleading. That doesn't show what I want. Close that out. But yeah, that picture you had showed me the other day, the here we go. The yada yada yada. Where's this at? That, if you look at it, I didn't save the picture. I'm actually looking at it on Facebook. Oops, wrong button. If you notice here, the red area, that's a granny square. This is a variation on a granny square. They went all the way around however many times. And then when they got here, they did only two sides. There's a technique that you could do that. You do two sides, and then you actually flip it, and you work your way back and forth to do all the white and the tan and the black and the blue. Same thing with the ones that have white in the center and then the green. You would just make however many you want. It's how you piece them together to give that optical illusion effect. But that's all based on a granny. No grannies in Mexicana. So I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm actually streaming longer than normal, so I guess North Fairy's getting his wish of a longer stream. But definitely Saturday, I can give you a refresher on grannies. Where should be in 3. Of course. Should be 3 inches bigger. You actually could. A cotton one would actually be ideal for that because it would absorb the condensation. That's North Fairy. And you notice the bigger that you make it, I mean, this yarn, it's a basic worsted weight yarn, but it does have a little bit of drape. It doesn't have a lot of drape, but it has some drape because it's not a densely crocheted fabric. It's got all those holes in it that will help with that. So I'm going to finish this row. And then it's going to be almost time to call it a night. Yep, I wasn't good at them either. I understood the concept. The hard part I had originally was to get them to be square. I would do all of this. I would do the 3 clusters and the 2 chains and the 3 clusters and all of that, the whole thing. They just came out wonky. Okay. Well, before you leave, I'm going to give a little sneak peek. A sneak peek of Thursday's projects. Gonna flash them on the screen real quick. They're really pretty. This is going to be the first thing we're gonna do on Thursday. I don't know how well the stitches are showing up on camera. That's a sneak peek of what's to come. We'll learn how to make that. And then this is going to take some patience. Okay, the white one here, this is really easy to make. Really, really, it looks real complicated. This is really, really easy to make. Okay? That's not going to take long to explain. This next one, Thursdays also will probably be a longer stream, just to explain how this is done. And this, I think, is really, really, really pretty looking. This will be the thing that's going to take time to show. So, those will be what we're gonna... This is Tunisian. The first one was regular. This is Tunisian. This does make a thicker fabric, but we'll go into this. This is a little more complex and complicated, and I will go very slow with it. It took me a while to learn how to do this the other day. I think I know how to do it. I'm not making your blanket. This one here, I watched a video and I read a bunch of patterns, and I had to actually write it out myself in language that I would understand, that would be easier to explain. Okay, I don't know how to increase and decrease in Tunisian, so if you want a sweater out of this, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, we'll do that on Thursday. I think I thought that blanket was a scallop, because this is not a scallop stitch. It looks like a scallop stitch, but it's actually not. It's like a variation. Good night, Claymiko. Good night, North Fairy, if North Fairy is leaving. So, yeah. You'll have to find out on Thursday. And on that note, I think we are going to call it a night. Let me move this out of the way. Again, hey Boston, you come in as soon as I'm leaving, as soon as I'm signing off. Seagam did that the other night. I'll be on Tuesday night at 8 Eastern to show those two examples that I showed you. Remember to check out my YouTube channel as soon as they're uploaded. As soon as I'm done, I upload them. I'm going to have to piece them together because... Did I say Tuesday? I meant Thursday. My schedule is below. Oh, hey Seagam. Again, I'm getting ready to leave too. Thursday. I meant Thursday. Check out my schedule below. That will tell you when I'm streaming. Again, check out my YouTube. I don't post on Twitter or Instagram. I think I might get rid of those because I never even use those websites. Period. So I think that's it for tonight. You all have a good evening and happy crafting.